Welcome to a new episode here in the Energy Bridge. Today we have the pleasure to have Emanuel Jöbstl. Yeah, good.
Well done, well done.
Yeah, great. And today we're going to dive into, again, the hot topic of the decade or maybe the century, AI and energy. But with an interesting approach of creating an operative system for energy, which we're going to explore. So as a context for the episode, Europe is living an unprecedented volatility. I mean, we have negative prices when the sun is in the midday, and then we have a peak when the sun is set. And at the same time, we are installing a lot of EVs and heat pumps, which is changing the load profiles. And in this scenario, we have to kind of orchestrate millions of devices with different ages and manufacturers. So it's complicated. And also you are involved with energy communities. So it's kind of seeing the bigger picture of controlling not only individuals, but also communities. So the question for this episode is, for the last decade, we've trained massive centralized AI models in giant data centers to grade text and generate images. But to survive the energy transition, do we actually need millions of tiny decentralized AI agents living in our basement, autonomously trading energy, controlling our heat pumps, and managing our local energy communities? Do we need it? So thank you for coming today, Emanuel, and super looking forward for learning from you.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here. It's a wide range of topics. I'm sure it's going to be quite exciting to talk about it.
Yeah, amazing. Tell us about your hat first.
About my hat, that's a wild one. At Optima, we do quite a lot of math. So the reason is that even in 2026, if you have optimization problems, you have modeling problems, and so on. Well, I mean, throwing an LLM on everything is not, gonna get you anywhere. Sometimes you just need mathematics. You might need differential equations, equation systems to optimize what your system is doing, and so on, right? And I mean, big part of building these systems is also to verify them, and the good way is visualization. So a couple of months ago, I actually sent a picture of my work to a friend, like basically just a photo I took with my phone from the computer screen. And it had all kinds of equations there, but also some graphs. And she just replied, hey, Amy, math is hot, right? And I found that so cool. I wanted to make a bit of company merch out of it. So I have a few caps that say math is hot lying around because, I also think that it's good to also brand mathematics as something very cool and useful right there. And actually, this cap is getting quite some good resonance also in the public when doing shopping and so on. So,
and what did you study?
What did I study? I did study computer science, actually. So I did that in Germany back in the day. So after doing the, high school in Austria, HTL in Villach, I decided to move to Germany to study computer science there at KIT. And then I also spent some time at Carnegie Mellon in the US to do some research specifically. And when it comes to machine learning, when I started out with everything, I was not the biggest fan of machine learning.
Which year? Because we know that we have been from the beginning.
Yeah, sure. So, I got into machine learning like in the mid 2010s, right? But before that, I was really an algorithm guy. Like I always felt machine learning, like back in the day, it wasn't even neural networks. Neural networks were not a thing. It was, a lot of statistical methods, but it kind of felt a bit like, a mix between statistics and mathematics, right? And I was more focused on algorithms, on speed, on algorithm optimization, databases, stuff like that. But then by the mid 2010s, I co-founded a startup in London, stitching VR pictures on a phone. And we needed a bunch of computer vision there to make it work. And this is actually what got me into AI in the first place. So back in the day, I was looking at all these computer vision, models. And then I started diving really into neural networks. And that led me to actually doing a master's thesis at Carnegie Mellon in the US around natural language processing. And back in the day, we didn't use neural networks, but right as I was there, Google dropped this, super impactful paper called Attention is All You Need, that for the first time in, science academia described the attention mechanism that all the LLMs use today, so the basic architecture. And that was a super interesting time to be in the field.
So you have done things in multiple places, and so this is your Optima, your second startup, right?
Well, I mean, if you count the ones that failed, Optima is number 8.
I mean, every failure
Everything
counts,
failed,
right?
Yeah. If you count the one that failed, then it's startup number 8 actually. So
Wow.
did a bunch of stuff. In the early days, in my early 20s, like in my early 20s, it was way more, like projects. So we had ideas for really, really cool, like products that we started to build. So actually, before I was 20, I was involved in a project that was about ride hailing, similar to what you would have now with Uber or BlaBlaCar. But back in the day, there was no apps. You didn't have a phone that could run apps. Like the first and second iPhone were just a thing in the US. Europe didn't have smartphones. So we built it using SMS. And of course, like the user experience there is terrible because back in the day, you didn't have AI to pass your messages. You would have to come up with some parser logic. And, it was ideas like this, right? But I think the first company that made it somewhere, it's a very curious one. We did it in collaboration with a huge corporate. And it's the corporate that is actually doing, how is it called? Captain Morgan and Johnny Walker, this big alcohol, the alcohol brand, the drinks company. So this is a British company doing about 10 billion a year with alcoholic beverages, right? And back in the day, the company would finance projects and startups related to responsible drinking with quite some money. And we decided to build an app that would recognize how drunk you are by looking at your step pattern using the phone sensors and then using machine learning. And we would have a UI, like an app that would basically show you a history of your past night. Where did you go? Like GPS position, how drunk were you? Photos and everything in the timeline.
Were you inspired by Hangover?
Maybe, yeah. But, I think the concept was quite cool. And we also included notifications to tell you, hey, maybe drink a water now, or maybe get a cab home and so on, right? But I mean, needless to say, that doesn't really have a business model, right? So, I mean, we got some money for building that, but then it fell apart, right? And, after that came the VR company. Then I bootstrapped a company in Germany doing websites for journalists in a fully automated way. And there we also really used a lot of machine learning for doing the web scraping that we needed for keeping the websites up to date, the journalist profiles up to date. And the company is still operating, right? I just stepped out as CEO about 2 years ago.
What was it called?
It was called Offery.
Okay.
So I built it together with a friend from Hamburg. He was from the media tech ecosystem, and he had this idea of basically creating a portfolio builder for journalists, but adding a web scraper to it to keep the portfolios up to date. So whenever the journalist would write something online, let's say the New York Times, Washington Post, we would basically pull in the article, put it on the website, right? And as I said, we did a lot of web scraping machine learning there, and the company is fully bootstrapped. So I consider it quite a success, right? And at the same time, I was also really involved in Sigma Squared, scaling up the team, to international from about 15 to more than 50 people.
What does it do?
Sigma Squared. Yeah. It's a community for founders below 26. So we basically bring together the most ambitious, young, impact-driven founders across the globe. The community's been doing amazing. We have these flagship events now once a year with about 350, 400 participants. The last 2 years we were hosted in Valencia by the city, and we bring all these young people together from 5 continents, from Africa, from South America, North America, Europe and Asia, right? Some of them on full sponsorship. And it's just always a blast to be around young and inspiring people, right? Well, and after that, I joined Optima. So, yeah.
So, yeah, we knew when we were researching about you that you have had quite a long journey.
Yeah.
And you started to code very young. We found some price when you were 14, 15.
Yeah.
So when you started with coding and why? Like, what was the motivation?
Yeah, hey, that's a very great question.
You're not even Indian.
Not even Indian.
Indian.
Well, yeah. So it's a bit of a curious story because my mom had a computer when I was like a kid, like really young, like 6, 7, 8 years, right? And the reason she had it was doing PhD, writing her doctoral thesis, right? And I really like to play around with the computer. I figured out you can do all kinds of funny stuff, even in like the regular office tools like PowerPoint, you can animate stuff and so on. And, with this, even in these early days with like 13 or so, I really wanted to learn programming, but like being in middle school, countryside in Carinthia, my IT teacher was like, yeah, I can teach you Microsoft Office, but I'm not the right person to teach you programming. And also back in the day, like we are talking like really early 2000s, internet was not a thing in every household in Austria, right? So I basically asked my parents to be sent to a school like the HTL in Villach that I mentioned, where I would learn programming from the age of 14. And this is what I did. I had great teachers there. They were very experienced in the field. They did different things in the field, like they even taught at university before. And started to learn C when I was 14. I found programming back in the day super exciting. And the reason it was so exciting to me was basically that you can create almost anything as long as you can, think it through. So, with computer programs, technically your memory is infinite. Your compute is just a matter of time. If you have it in your head, you can build it, right? And that was for me like a big motivation to dig into coding from the start, and I loved it. I would also consider, for my teens specifically, coding was my biggest hobby, right? I did write a lot of things, and it accumulated also in some quite interesting projects. So you mentioned it before, like winning a prize. I think I was like 16 or 17 or so. Actually managed to win an art prize with a computer program that I write. And there's actually a very personal story behind it, because I had a classmate who was quite negative about what I would do. And he would always say, well, computer programming can never be beautiful. It can never be art. And I had this idea of actually writing a program that would listen to the network traffic of your computer and create music out of it. So it would basically look at which servers you talk to and assign like a tone and note to every server, right? And as you would browse the internet, you would hear what the website is doing, kind of, You would have like a very lean website with no ads. It would be like a single note being played, right? And then you would have a website that pulls in a lot of content, like the most news websites, and it would be like somebody mashing the keyboard, right? And then we also, came together at school. We built a little network with a bunch of computers, and we had people deliberately send packages to my machine to play a song, right? And we sent that actually to the Ars Electronica Prix, the art prize of the Ars Electronica Center in Linz, and actually won second place there in the category below 19, right, back in the day. So it turns out computer programs can be art after all.
Yeah, and
this was a funny fact that I had for the end, because it was mixed with drum and bass, I think.
Drum and bass?
Yeah.
No.
Or just like any.
It was like piano sounds back in the day,
piano.
But synthesized, right? I wrote the synthesizer even. So yeah. Thank you.
So from all of this, getting to the energy field, the super regulated field, I mean, it's getting deregulated, but but getting to the whole physical world of energy. What was the motivation, and how was the transition?
Yeah, to be super honest, how it happened, it was so random. Like it's so random, but it's a great story.
Random.
The company Heitzmar, right?
Yeah.
Like they are right now the biggest heat pump installer in Austria when it comes to existing buildings, like in retrofit. Like they are big, right? And they've grown very, very, very fast. Like the company just celebrated 2-year anniversary last Friday. So wow, yeah, right. 2 years in the market and already the biggest heat pump installer in Austria. And one of the founders there, Michael Kovachev, he's actually a really good friend. So we worked together in the board of Sigma Squared back in the day in the nonprofit. And suddenly he was gone. Like he was building his company. Everything was going crazy. I didn't see him for a year. And then I dropped by in Vienna. I was on the way to Greece for some climbing trip, but I dropped by at his. We had dinner and she was like, Emmy, I want to get you to Vienna and work with you. I don't know how, but I wanna get you here. I was living in Berlin back in the time. My answer was like something like, yeah, Misha, it's like unrealistic. I'm right now in Berlin. Like, why would I move to Vienna, son? It's like, it's gonna happen, but I don't know how, right? And then like a week later, I'm, in a climbing gym. It's already after the session, just on sports. I have a beer in my hand, and then my phone rings and Misha is on, and he's like, Emmy, we need your help. We want to acquire a company building energy management systems, but, we need somebody to do the due diligence, the technical due diligence on the acquisition, and we need it to happen fast. I was like, how fast? He's like, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m.
With a beer in your hand.
Well, I'm like, wait a second. So I call my dad. I'm like, Dad, hey, I'm so sorry. I know you're busy, but I would need your car tomorrow. Would you manage to go to work with mom or whatever? And he was like, yeah, sure. You can borrow my car. Seems important, right? So I borrowed the car of my dad on super short notice. I went to the office of this company, sat down with the engineers for like 5 hours and went through the entire code base. And afterwards, I called Misha. I was like, look, Misha, this company, I mean, it's not amazing, right? But it's also something we can work with. They have a lot of data and skill in-house, right? So would be an okay acquisition if you move into that field, right? And Misha tells me, yeah, great. Then we're going to buy the company, but only if you run it. And, I just told Misha, look, Misha, I've been building companies all my life. I'm a founder, not a hired CEO. Make me a good deal and we do it. We agreed. And that's the way Optima was born. So we acquired another company together, a company from Graz that was in the field for about 10 years. We took in learnings, we took in employees and also a lot of data in the field and specifically a lot of knowledge on the projects that the company did. So we had suddenly a couple of hundred, I think more than 800 different projects on our plate that were all in the energy sector, all energy management in industry, in commercial facilities, in private households. And the knowledge what works and what doesn't. And from that knowledge, we started building Optima. So we took about six to 8 months to completely rebuild the product and then launched it to the market as a very lightweight energy management system meant for single family homes at a very competitive price point.
Which year was it?
So the acquisition happened in December 2024. This is when the phone call happened. And then I formally stepped in as CEO in March 2025. So it's been about a year.
Amazing. Wow. So let's get into this last wild. What has it been wild last 1 year?
Yeah, I have to admit it was very wild. The thing is, I'm a software guy, right? I did software development for close to 20 years and 15 of those commercially, professionally as a founder or contractor. And the software ecosystem, you can build things, you can easily verify things, you can redeploy if things go wrong. If you have a bug in a website, you can just, roll it out to the server, all is good. But now with Optima, we are suddenly doing hardware, right? And we are doing hardware at a price point that's suitable for consumers. We work with installers every day. We have people in the field using our product, putting it into the households, connecting it. We have to verify these installations, and then every house is so different. This is something that I genuinely didn't expect, that every house, electricity, but also heating system is incredibly unique. And then finding good optimization schemes for all these households that work generally and create savings for the homeowner, that was a very, very hard task. But luckily we had a lot of data and also with Heitzma, an incredibly strong partner to get to our goals.
So you acquired this company?
Yes.
You built a product on top of that and you released it into the market. So what exactly is that Optima doing?
Yeah.
It's you explained it as a energy operating system for energy and a EMS.
Yes.
But just to hear from you, how would you explain Optima? What exactly are the products and how is it going to change something for average household?
Yeah, absolutely. So what Optima does is it's basically a hardware and software product. So little hardware controller plus the entire software, including an app that you install in your home. And then it measures and manages all your big producers and consumers, right? And all that in accordance with the energy market. So basically, if you own a battery, a PV, a heat pump, maybe even an electric vehicle, we can make sure that we control all these things in a way that maximizes your savings. And the potential here is quite big. For example, by adding a dynamic tariff and running an EMS, you can easily save up to 40% of the year's energy cost, given, if your household is equipped the right way. And, the interesting bit here is why we decided to build this solution, because right now, I would say there is between 50 and 70 different energy management solutions available in the market in Austria and Germany, right? But the key thing here is that a lot of these solutions, they are pushed by individual, companies, and they are very focused on a certain bit of the equation, right? So, for example, in the field out there, you have energy management solutions built into your inverter, but all they do is battery and inverter control. Then you have an energy management solution that comes with your heat pump, right? And it only manages the heat pump according to the price, but it ignores your battery and solar system, right? But what you want to have is you want to have a piece in the middle that coordinates everything, including the energy market, dynamic prices, but also energy communities. And Optima is exactly that piece that you can put in the middle and everything is taken care of, right? And we do it in a way that the customer doesn't need to worry. The installer puts it in, it's sold as a complete package by our partners, and then the end customer gets a nice app and doesn't have to worry. And you know why that is so important? Because I know customers out there in the field. If you look what your regular customer is doing, for example, I have a heat pump customer here in Vienna who is always ready to test with us. What he's doing is he opens the app of the heat pump manufacturer and manually increases the temperature of the buffer during noon because he wants the heat pump to use his solar surplus to heat up the warm water. And he does that every day. And people do the same thing with electric vehicles. They race to the garage and, unplug it when the sun goes down. And why is that not automated? Why is that not completely hands off, right? And this is what we are supplying with Optima.
How does it work physically? Do you have a hardware installed next to the meter, or how does it work? Or you have to connect all the devices to one place, or is wireless with Wi-Fi? How does it work?
That's a very good question. So it's hardware module, right? We have two different ones. We have one that can do Wi-Fi only. It is very inexpensive and the customer can put it into the network themselves. And we have one that's a bit more sophisticated and has a bit more connectivity options. And the reason is that not every heating system, every heat pump can be controlled via Wi-Fi, right? You might have heard the term smart grid ready, which is essentially two switches that are electronically controlled, right? And for example, our larger hardware module can deal with those as well. So we have two hardware lines. But what is important is that we basically put it into the customer's house, right? To basically be able to control everything very fast and offline. And that's important to make it work in a reliable way.
I mean, we are having this question with other companies here in Europe that are building hardwares. What is your vision for the future? Do you want to build it here, like made in Europe, or you are building somewhere else and then bring it here to sell it?
That's a very good question. I mean, we are already doing the end assembly in Europe, and parts of the components are also from European companies. So it's our own hardware that we developed. But specifically for the PCB manufacturing, we have a hardware partner in China right now. He's actually a friend who acquired the VR company that we built in London a couple of years ago. So we have pretty good ties. I visited him a couple of times. He's a great guy. And he's helping with the hardware supply chain from that end. So we basically, we have them produce the PCBs for us, and then we ship them to Europe. We test it here, we assemble it here, and we build the software here. And I believe for a hardware company, this is generally not a bad option to have European software with hardware that's manufactured abroad, because I'm not gonna lie, the ecosystem in China, specifically Shenzhen, is incredible with hardware manufacturing when it comes to speed, experience, and unit price. But then again, we have incredible product and software engineers in Europe, and I believe this symbiosis is building really, really, really good products.
Yeah, we went to China recently in October last year. Now we are recording this in April. They have the same feeling that the symbiosis with Europe is collaboration with software and hardware from them, and like the engineers from Europe to design, but build there. So it's a good match.
I think so too, yeah.
And you were talking about how initially Heijma, the person Misha from Heijma persuaded you to come on board. So what is the relationship between Optima and Heijma now? It's a separate entity, right?
Yeah. We are two separate companies, and Optima is also allowed to sell to other installers and everything, which I'm actually doing. There's a lot of interest there in small commercial and in residential homes specifically. So the relationship there is that Heijma is basically our biggest partner, and the partner that's also fully committed in our system. And also the Heijma founders are shareholders in Optima. This is a very powerful combination. So I believe that if you want to build an energy management system at the moment, you will either need a lot of funding or you need a constellation like this. And the reason is that you need to collect the real world experience and show that your product is actually working and worth it. And in that sense, finding your first customer is incredibly hard. And I'm just going to be very honest with you guys. Like without that offer, I would have never done this, right? It would have been way too complicated to get the company off the ground. But together with Heitzma, Optima was there for a jump start right from the beginning.
And so basically, what you're saying is that I don't know how many installation they're doing every month, but it's growing a lot, and they're the biggest one in Austria. So every installation that is done by Heitzma is already having Optima as its default energy management system.
Absolutely. Almost every installation, like there's a few cases where it doesn't make sense to have an energy management system, but mainly due to compatibility of existing devices, but almost every installation gets it. And I believe that what's really interesting here is that by doing that, we are not only giving the user a good add-on, a good product that helps them to use their entire installation to the full extent. We are also opening the door to actually provide energy services. So as you know, in the Austrian energy market, dynamic tariffs and also energy communities are a really, really big topic. And Optima is one of the few energy management systems on the market that can actually include energy communities in the optimization. So for example, what we can do is if you have a local energy community, we can make sure to use your battery, if you're the battery and PV owner, to supply our other households during the night. So you basically get more utilization of the community and usually for all involved parties, a better energy price for these hours, right? And this is something customers actually ask a lot about. Yeah, and we make that quite effortless.
Also understand the new wave now this year is AI agents. Now is in the hot topic.
Yeah.
Especially after Peter, which is Austrian, created OpenClaw with open source. So would you say that what you are building is going to turn into a AI energy agent in your house, earning money while you are sleeping? And also to know for the owner, how much can they save using your software?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have, let's start with the savings first. I mean, if you have a household that has, everything fully electrified, battery, PV, a heat pump, and an electric vehicle, we are seeing up to 40% savings in energy cost, specifically if you combine it with a dynamic tariff. I mean, the biggest lever here is really that we can shift all your demand to the hours where the energy is cheap or even negatively priced, while we basically make sure to supply to the grid, either to an energy community or when the energy price is high. And that's the biggest lever, right?
Who are your clientele right now? Like, do you go directly to the homeowners, or do you go to a utility and they are your clients, or energy community?
That's a very good question. So we, at the moment, go directly through homeowners. I believe that if you want to do energy management at scale, you need to sell it through the installer, because the reason is, so it's a very big insight here. First of all, the end customer rarely makes the decision about which hardware gets in. Why? End customer is not an expert. You have like 50 companies out there that are building whatever, PV, heat pumps, and so on, right? And they all have nice marketing material. And customer doesn't really know. They have to go to the installer, right? And get a few offers, then compare them, right? Part of this offer is the EMS, so it's installer driven. Why not utilities? I believe that the unit economics for all parties are best if an EMS is installed when the installer is there, right? And then utilities don't really have an incentive for rolling this out.
I ask you this question because and it's a bit of benchmarking question as well, because just 2 days ago we were in the office of Podero.
Yeah. And I know Chris, he's a great guy. He's a friend. Hey, Chris.
and they have a different approach.
I know.
They go directly to the utilities, and we asked him a question as well, like how did that work? So it's very interesting, and just go on, please tell us.
Hey, I mean, you can do like a special edition, Optima versus Podero, do it side by side. No, but hey, let me explain it like this. I believe Podero is fundamentally, even if it looks similar, it's a different product. What I believe what Chris is doing, and I'm sure he can give you a way better answer there, is to actually drive remote access control also for flexibility cases, right? And their utilities have, a big advantage. Or a big incentive, let's put it like this, right? Like, because if you look at a big energy supplier, they actually have a very big incentive to make, let's say, the heat pumps stick to their price predictions, right? And if you can do that with a system like Podero, it's like a big thing to roll it out. What we do with Optima is a bit different. We want to be independent of the utilities. We want to first and foremost do a good service to the homeowner, and then being able to offer flexibility trading and working with utilities is an additional business case that we are looking at, but not the primary one.
Okay.
Why is that the case? Because I believe energy management is a distribution game, right? And the best way to distribute is to make a great product for the homeowner.
We will put this section out and then ask Podero to comment on it. But it's an interesting take.
Yeah, and just you are orchestrating different hardwares, and some of them speak different languages, different protocols, and they are different ages. They can be 10 years old, or 20 years old, electrical equipment with new digitalization. And so how do you orchestrate this mix of different electronics, different protocols, different years?
Yeah, that's fun. I mean, it basically ties down to having great software architecture, right? So I'm actually very grateful for my engineering team. They are some of the best engineers I've ever worked with. And I mean, what we basically do is we build a very abstract device orchestration framework. Like it's basically a stack where we can easily integrate new devices. So to give you a benchmark, integrating and testing a new inverter or battery model to production readiness takes us about half a workday, like a single engineer half a workday. With heat pumps, it takes a bit more time. The challenge here is that heat pumps are all very different. So every manufacturer has different control approaches, right? And then on top of that, there's system models that basically describe the behavior, and all gets put into a gigantic optimization model. And, I actually want to come back to the thing that you said earlier around AI, because you asked me about an AI agent that does things here, right? I believe that most of the optimization logic here is mathematical, and it's going to stay mathematical, but we use AI in the company quite heavily. What specifically, works really well with AI is actually making the data understandable to the user. So instead of showing them 20 numbers and metrics and diagrams, we generate AI summaries that are also giving a bit of, explanation to what's going on, right? Which users like a lot. And the other thing is we heavily use AI for internal processes and coding. Energy community setup, right? Document generation, but then also the entire software development stack. I mean, I mentioned I've been in software development for ages. I was in engineering leadership positions and CTO positions, and AI is just a gigantic game changer right now when it comes to productivity.
Do you still code or not anymore?
I do, but the thing is that right now it's way more telling an agent what to do and reading. I mean, I have the experience, my team too, they also have the experience to look at a file and see the weak spots, see the mistakes in the architecture. So I believe that programming fundamentally changed for great programmers to be a bit more high level, right? And there's not much typing involved anymore, right? And what is also crazy is how verification and testing changed, because suddenly it became so cheap to produce tests and more code and so on, right? So you can have almost everything. I think the art right now is way more building the right thing and keeping the entire stack lean, right? So it doesn't explode, right, in terms of volume, but typing and code has become incredibly cheap.
Coming back to it's a silly thing to say, but you guys acquired Soli. So I think Podero got Alexander as the CCO, and you guys got the clients of Soli.
Yeah, that's true.
How did the acquisition go, and how challenging was that, and how were you able to integrate all the clients?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So first of all, Heitzma acquired Soli, right? Not Optima.
Yes, sorry. Yeah. Yes.
But for us, that has been going nicely. So it's mainly about having more customers in the portfolio, support, and so on. But specifically for Optima, as you probably know, Soli had their own energy management solution called Soli Brain, right? Which is based on GridX. And because we also looked very closely at competitors before deciding to build Optima, right? I mean, there is solutions out there like GridX, right? Why don't we take their product? The way of working together with GridX is actually that the company has to pay monthly fees. So the system keeps running. And because Soli was bankrupt, GridX also shut down their entire operations. So all these Soli customers were basically in need for a new energy management system. And what we basically did together with Soli is we checked the hardware that these customers were being sold, checked the compatibility with us. And the majority of the customers, I would say more than 96% are fully compatible with Optima. So we basically offered these customers to get the Optima energy management system at a discounted price. It's the Wi-Fi controller that I mentioned that customers can put in themselves. And a large part of the customer base ordered that instantly. And we are going to ship to these customers within the next 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm quite excited about this because it means big portfolio growth for us. And I think it's an incredible way to offer these customers some of the energy products we have in the portfolio.
And if you can put a number to it, how many customers are you already in the data that if you can speak about it, that you're already dealing with?
With Optima.
With Optima.
Yeah. So, I mean, from the MEO side, we acquired a bit more than 800, right? Legacy customers. New Optima customers, it's in the mid 3-figure range.
Okay.
That we are dealing with right now.
To think of how many data points that occur, just from a system point of view.
Well, that's a lot, and I'm bad with mathematics in my head. But for each customer, we track between 40 and 90 data points.
Yeah.
So the reason is that we keep track of a lot of things, including the thermal properties of your home, electricity, different usage patterns, but also prices, weather data, and market data, right? Why do we need this? Because it's required for actually doing good optimization. So if you want to do a great heat pump optimization, you kind of have to know what's the thermal loss of the house, right? What's the thermal capacity? What's the buffer sizes? And that's all things that you cannot really measure easily. So you have to estimate them from the data, and you just need a lot of data points for doing it.
How can you balance the need of the end user to save money, but also keeping the grid safe to blow up transformer, for example, because you can give a sign of when in the same moment to turn on many devices at the same time. And how do you deal with that? Because you are creating a new peak demand in one certain point. What is the balance there?
Well, I mean, I think we are not creating peak demands. We are doing, naturally quite the opposite, because the reason here is also that the price signals that the market gives you, they are aligned with grid stability. So for example, if you look at the EPEX spot price, then during noon, it's, cheapest or even negative. And the reason is that they want to incentivize consumption when solar production is highest, right? Just to give you an example. And when it comes to the flexibility markets, I believe what's important there to understand is it's just a matter of cost, right? So you have a market for flexibility out there. And flexibility basically means that at any given point of time, you're holding a certain reserve. And if the Austrian power grid tells you, we now need, let's say, 5 megawatts for 30 minutes, you have to supply that, right? And that's the entire deal. And everything there is market-based. So for example, you have battery parks, which can offer that service relatively cheap, but then you could also power up gas turbines, which is more expensive. And this is also driving, the grid and energy prices out there, right? And if we say we participate in these markets, then it's more about, controlling supply and demand of the households, of a large group of households, like we are talking 1,000 to 2,000 minimum, to actually, supply or drain energy from the grid. And you can actually do that without destroying a user's comfort, because you have certain buffers in your house. Your battery has a capacity, your heating buffer has a capacity that you can leverage for that. And you can actually compute what your window of flexibility is that doesn't change the outcome for the user. And then when it comes to pricing, all energy that you put into flexibility services is actually subtracted from your energy bill anyway. So we are good on that front. Like, I'm very, very confident that we can not only make both groups happy. What would be my big dream would actually creating an energy tariff that allows us explicitly to trade with the user's flexibility, but then again use the earnings on that side that we do by trading the flexibility to make energy very cheap for the user. I mean, think about how cool would it be that, let's say you have an Optima device, you can opt in to get a 4 cent per kilowatt hour energy tariff, just, for allowing us to control your devices to some extent.
After listening to you, it's great to know that people coming from IT, let's say, from like developers, and understanding so well and be able to explain so well a super a complicated topic as energy. So congrats, because it's
thank you.
For sure it's not easy, but yeah, it's super interesting.
But I mean, I had great people to talk to as well, right? Like I have great mentors in the sector that also encouraged me to go into the field.
Amazing. And just getting back to the security topic that you briefly touched upon, you also worked at AIT for network routing. By the way, I started my career as a network engineer.
Uh-huh.
I worked as a network operations center.
It's such a cool field.
Yeah. And but as we decentralize the grid and then we are putting AI agents and more of such things into our critical infrastructure, how concerned we should be about cybersecurity coming from a cyber expert, IT expert? Will we need some sort of encryption and to protect the smart grids, or what's your view on that?
Well, I mean, I really, really hope, for the love of God, everybody's using encryption already right now, right?
Actually, there was one thing I have to tell you. Like in our forum last time, there's someone who works for AIT. Bharat, he's all about smart grids. He's a rookie about grids, and he was telling us that every inverter just has a default encryption 1, 2, 3, 4 still.
Could be, yeah. So, but the thing here is that I think it's very feasible and possible to build technical systems that are quite safe, right? I mean, you have like in our case, like a hardware controller. You can be very strict with which network connections you accept, how you store the data, what kind of certificate you use to communicate with the server and everything. And I believe it's also absolutely necessary. The problems that we are really seeing in the field is exactly what you said, but that's human problems, right? Why is the password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever? It's because, like installation personnel wants to have it easy, right? And I think, there's also, you shouldn't be judged for it, right? Like they want to have easy work. It's good to have like a standardized password from that perspective, because it's easier to service and rotate your stuff and everything, right? And I get it. It makes things simple. But I mean, then of course, it's very, very easy for an attacker, if they really want to get into your system. And that's the danger. And I believe what we really have to do here is, to have some sort of training. Also, when it comes to AI, I mean, we touched AI agents before. We use Cloud Code and OpenClaw heavily in the company. I believe it's all great tools. But if you use them recklessly, there is a big, big, big danger of information being funneled out and so on. And you also see that in the entire ecosystem right now. There's crazy supply chain attacks going on at the moment, right? And I believe that, like understanding of, what safety and security means, right? And how easy it is for an AI tool or attacker to exfiltrate your data if, there's access, right? I think that's the real key here.
Did you see recently the Gmail of the FBI chief from US got?
No, I didn't see that.
No?
Oh, what happened?
Yeah, it's a Indian American dude called Kash Patel. His data got leaked, but he was dancing. He was a good boy, just smoking cigar and dancing. So all good.
Yeah.
But
no, just going to the Central and Eastern Europe region. How do you see it in the recent years, and how is the potential there to implement the solution that you are bringing?
I mean, I think that generally in every country there is good potential. I just think we are sometimes on a bit of different timelines, right? The reason is that one of the main drivers for having an energy management system and actually having this flexibility is, well, having electric heating in form of a heat pump and also having like a PV and, a battery system, right? Or an electric car. And there are certain countries in Europe that are definitely forerunners. I think, Spain and Portugal are incredible when it comes to solar. The UK is doing big pushes. The Nordics definitely, right? And also the entire DACH region is making huge steps. I believe we are going to see the same thing in Eastern Europe as well. And we also already have, a lot of these concepts and market dynamics in, for example, Czech Republic and Slovakia. That I definitely know.
And what's your primary market right now?
We are very focused on the DACH region. The reason why we have strong geographic focus is that some of the things that we want to do, specifically when it comes to energy services, you have to keep a lot of legislation in mind, right? So for example, the Swiss, German, and Austrian energy markets, they are similar but not the same, right? For example, in Germany, you have very different rules when it comes to putting power to the grid. For example, in Germany right now, in Austria, we have ÖMAG, right? They are basically paying every PV systems owner and they are subsidized, right? And in Germany, that program just stopped, right? So right now, if you want to have a solar system in Germany and you want to feed energy and sell energy to the grid, you actually have to find an energy supplier that purchases your energy, right? But that's a new legislation change that makes everything more difficult, right? And I think there's a lot of these nuances in markets. And to be very honest, 3 countries is enough for me for now. But we have other countries on the radar for the future.
Amazing.
Yeah, and just taking advantage of your entrepreneurial experience, because you just mentioned the gap with the region Central and Eastern Europe, which learnings from the startup ecosystem here in Austria and Germany that the region could learn from to accelerate energy transition and decarbonization?
Or even Vienna could learn from Berlin, your experiences.
To be very honest, I think Vienna is actually doing pretty well, right? So, I mean, I left Austria 15 years ago to study in Germany, right? Because back in the day, I ran a business in Carinthia. Like if a couple of weeks after my 80th birthday, I went to WKO and Finanzamt and I registered my first business selling websites. And I have to admit, when I was a teenager, I had a very hard time getting off the ground, right? So I left to Germany, I lived in London, Berlin, the US, did my company stuff. Then now I come back to Vienna. And what I'm seeing here is actually a very flourishing startup ecosystem that's not gigantic, but the people who are in it, they are serious about it. There's some impressive companies in Vienna. And I think the only thing that I would love to see a bit more is positivity. I think this is something that really sets apart great ecosystems, is that people there are very, very positive. They listen carefully and they are very kind. And I think this is also coming up now in Vienna and it has gigantic potential.
And which learning could be used in Central and Eastern Europe to improve the startup ecosystem? Which advice?
Successful companies, right? Successful founders, they need a few things. I mean, capital is one of them, but I think capital is okay available, right? You can also raise from investors outside of your country. But I think what's one of the most important things is having an ecosystem, like people around you specifically, that allow you to be a bit crazy, right? Because one thing that I've seen about great founders everywhere is that in the beginning, they stand very alone with their opinion in many cases until they force this opinion, these ideas into reality, and then suddenly everybody believes in it, right? But for that first step where you're alone and you're a visionary, you need people around you who also let you. And I think this is something that I've seen in incredible startup ecosystems like San Francisco, like Berlin, like London, and so on, right? And I think we can also have it here if we bring the right people together.
We are aiming to contribute to accelerate energy transition here. And in our forum, we are inviting startups from the region to meet here in Vienna and to meet other co-founders. So maybe crazy people with crazy people, they can support each other and move forward.
Yeah,
so.
I think you're doing great there. I think it's all about getting the right people into the room. This is, it's not something that you can quantify, but I would say it has incredible impact. It's maybe even more important than easy access to capital, like selecting the right people, putting them in a room, and then basically, having them push each other up.
On that note, you're invited for our meetup again in April and then the forum in June.
Yeah, excited for that one.
Yeah, and getting to our last round that we call quickfire, but it's never quick. But
wow.
So what you were just touching upon that you think that people are more asset than the capital, but what do you think, the code is bigger or the capital is bigger? What's the bigger bottleneck right now in the energy transition? Software engineers or a lack of bold venture capital?
Wow, tough question. Can I give a third answer?
Yeah, sure. You see, like it's never took.
Yeah, I think the biggest bottleneck in all countries right now is legislation, because if you look what, for example, is making us in Austria slow, it's, for example, certain processes with, other stakeholders, like energy providers, grid operators, whatever. What's really hindering Germany is smart meter rollout, right? I mean, sure, you can throw venture capital at it, lots of it. You might solve it if you pay everybody their smart meter, but at the end of the day, this is a political problem, right? And I think we have to also tackle it on that level.
From your IT experience, I think you started with DOS, maybe writing, then you use C++ or Python or Java in English.
Java, yeah.
Which language would you use to save the electrical grid from the scratch?
You're asking what we are currently using, huh? Mm-hmm. Definitely C#. So I know that, there's a big ecosystem out there doing JavaScript, and there's Rust, and there is whatever Go, and all these cool web languages. But I tell you, if you want to do anything in hardware, you want a language that's close to the hardware. So you want to go for one of the Cs. But then again, C or C++ is not so easy to develop. And Rust is also not easy to develop. It's a great language. It's just not easy to write a big system in it. And then C# can offer you that. You can go super close to the hardware. You have a lot of control, yet it's a very modern garbage collected language with a lot of benefits, and it has insane ecosystem support. So I was very surprised. Like previous projects were all in JavaScript, TypeScript, and so on. Was a cool ecosystem. But C# really solved a lot of the things that are painful in a very, very, very good way. So I can highly recommend doing that when you're doing anything with hardware or real-time capabilities.
Cool. Have you already raised some money on Optima? Is it bootstrap Optima, or you've raised some money, or what?
That's a very, very good question. So we didn't raise any capital yet. Mm-hmm. So what we basically did is we got money from Heitzma. So Heitzma gave us like a loan, but by now we are profitable, right? So we are selling enough hardware and software every month to finance the entire team and operations, right? So the unit economics of Optima are generally great because the hardware supply chain is working super well, and the software is also bought, right? And I have enough. I think the remarkable thing is that I have enough capital in the company to actually continue growing it, right? So I have enough capital to pay my developers and push the software, and that's quite a good situation to be in.
So on that note, if you don't require any capital, but if you're given 1 billion, what are you going to do with that money to accelerate energy transition or in your field?
It's a great question. I believe that if you want to drive change in the world, right, one of the best ways to do so is to build like a flywheel, like a system that basically drives the change and also grows while it's doing so. And to be honest, a company is actually a very good way of doing that. I know building impact companies is not easy, but if you can build a company that is profitable by doing something good, right, that's great. And I think what I would do for that very reason with €1 billion or US dollars or whatever is, to find the most ambitious impact-driven entrepreneurs around me and finance them.
Amazing.
Cool. We want to be in that group. Okay, so looking into the future, let's say 2030, that it's around the corner.
Yes.
How do you see the future bills? That they're going to be like a flat rate, like a Netflix subscription, or we're going to be trading energy by your phones daily?
Well, I mean, I hope that the energy trading is working fully automated, because this is what we are working to.
Okay, so you think energy grid operated with agents in the future, kind of?
Yeah, kind of. Like big optimization problem, agents to make the human interface. I think that's the thing. But to be very honest, I think this is going for every field. Sequoia had a very nice essay recently. And what they basically said, it's no longer the time of, software as a service. With AI agents, you can do service as a software. And I believe the biggest changes in any sector that we are going to see with AI agents is at the user interface.
That is something to look upon. Yeah, cool.
Getting to our last question, which is more personal. First, I want to ask you, you're a rock climber.
Yeah, I love it.
And hiking, of course, it's a...
Yeah, hiking, rock climbing, mountains.
Yeah, and what is the 7A route that you did?
Was 7A, like I did a few. I mean, 7A is not super crazy, but it's like if you're a hobbyist, it's a good goal, right? Well, I did a few of them with friends, had a good time.
Yeah, but what exactly it means? Why is it called 7A?
It's the rock climbing grade. So it's a scale that starts by at roughly, like, people start counting at 5 and then 6 ABC,
Okay.
7 ABC. And the world's hardest route is a 9C route. Like, it's like 3, 4, 5 people in the world that can do 9Cs. And the scale is also exponential. So usually it takes a rock climber more and more time to progress a single level.
To climb, it's like a team effort, but also lonely. So which learnings could you learn from that experience into the startup ecosystem or entrepreneurial spirit?
I think when you climb, what's really important is to stay in the moment and stay calm, because climbing is less about strength. It's more about doing the right thing and staying relaxed. When you climb a hard route, right? Like when I climb a 7A, it's very unlikely I'm going to do it on the first try. I fall, I get up and try again. And I think the third thing is that with climbing and with startups, in both cases, you need to have a great partner.
What would you say that is more difficult right now, to make differential equations to optimize a battery, or to convince people to use AI in their houses in the energy system?
Definitely the second one, but I think it is the core of all consumer products, that distribution and user interface and communication are usually the hardest bit, but also the key.
On that note, Emanuel, or we can also call you Emmy.
Please do.
Yeah. Okay. So Emmy, it's been a pleasure. I think you've been very efficient with the time. We had a very long questionnaire for you, but you managed it within the time. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Oh, I did. Thanks for the questions, guys. Thanks for having me. Good luck with the forum.
Wow, thank you. I'm looking forward to see you there, and also all the community in June in the forum. Thank you for watching the episode, and keep tuned for future interviews. Ciao.